Hey, we're going live. All right.
Rock and roll.
We have Mr. Morfit. So I appreciate everybody taking a little bit of time, and hopefully you saw the message in the comments on TroilsLive.com that we were running a little bit behind. Little, even when technology is so amazing, sometimes it can be so fussy, and I just don't choose to get too cranky about it, man, because it's not worth it. So I'm excited to have everyone here today to be a part of this conversation. Cameron Morfit is the golf writer for Sports Illustrated, and he's a really great guy. Our daughters played soccer together, and he's just that guy on the sidelines that I consider myself an artist and a writer. So I consider myself that, and he actually is a writer, and he's written a new book. But on the side of that soccer field, it's kind of like that gravitational stuff, game after game. You just kind of notice one another, and then eventually we started having conversations. And he's a really great guy. Lives here in Boise, Idaho, and works out of New York a lot, but he's really travels all over the planet to cover golfing and all the golfing stars. And the cool thing about this conversation is Cameron's a real guy, right? I think right out of here, Boise, Idaho, or out of Idaho, and who's made it to those top levels of what most people would consider success. And so it's really cool to know him on a personal level. And I'm really grateful, Cameron, that you took the time out to be on here today. So welcome to Troy Olds Live. And Cameron, tell me what's going on with you in the world right now before we jump into some questions, man. I got some deep questions for you.
Well, thanks, Troy. It's great to be here. Great to be here on Troy Olds Live, and just loving the energy. I just got done actually filing a story on Donald Trump. Got into politics a little bit today. Turns out the golf world is playing this week on one of his courses. So I was asked to write a column on how appropriate or inappropriate that really is in a time when golf needs to be sort of inclusive and bringing more people in the tent and not excluding certain groups or constituencies. So I just literally filed that story, and just happy to be done with that and happy to be on with you.
That's awesome. So I don't know what, maybe we shouldn't touch that one because it's going to get a little bit sassy and saucy, but I'm sure that's going to be a great article. I love the way you write, and I'm going to love picking that article up. When does that thing come out? Or is that online?
That'll be online on golf.com later today. Golf.com is the website where pretty much all the golf content from Sports Illustrated and Golf Magazine ends up. So I have a lot of stuff on there, and that keeps me hopping and really allows me to live here in Idaho and sort of work remotely and sort of parachute into New York every so often, which I don't do that frequently. I did last week, and it was sort of fun, but boy, Idaho, it's hard to beat Idaho. Very easy to live here.
Well, tell us about that, because you've got a pretty magic situation going on where you get to live in Idaho, which if people saw my office, I've got like a topography map right over there of the Frank Church Wilderness area, Stanley Basin, and I've got my son's goal list over here, which is all fly fishing. And we've got the Hot Springs book back over there, which is the Idaho Bible, because we're in Hot Springs a lot. So you get to live here. And tell us how that happened, because you're an Idaho boy, right, Cameron? You're born and raised here in Idaho?
I have lived in Idaho on and off since 1992, and since like early 93. My wife is born in Idaho. She's from eastern Idaho, Idaho Falls. And so, yeah, good old IF. So basically, we ended up meeting when I was working for the newspaper there in Idaho Falls. It's called the Post-Register newspaper, about a 30,000 circulation paper. And I think we met the first week I was in town after me hearing about how terrible it is for single guys in eastern Idaho. So that was sort of fortuitous, and we were there until 97, and we moved to New York and did the whole New York thing, all that crazy, get up, fight the crowds, get on the subway, go out and make your big dollar, make your name, and try and kind of get established in the career. So did the whole magazine thing in New York. Started at Sports Illustrated in '97, and left there after a couple of years to start another magazine, which was a lot of fun while it lasted. and then kind of had a little bit of time where I was just kind of on my own, just freelancing and kind of ham and egging it a little bit for about a year until latching back on with the Sports Illustrated and Golf Magazine group, which is all the same parent company. It's all Time Inc. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. But I've lived in Idaho for a long time.
That's cool. So yeah, I mean, anything like prior to like 96, you're a lifer. You know, you were born and raised here, so we'll just go with that. Anybody after that time frame, man, it's like visit but go home. So I'm interested. Like when you met your wife, was she? How long was it before you had children? Because I kind of look at some of the things in my life as AD or BC. You know, was it before children or after children, or AC rather? Because I know how radically different it becomes for an artist or writer once you've got these responsibilities.
Right. It changes everything. It does, you know, and it was, I guess, from the time we met around, 93, then we got married in 95. It wasn't until 2003 that we had our daughter. So it was a long time before we had our daughter. So you know, she got pregnant when we were living in New York. My wife did, and then we had our daughter there. And 3 months later, moved back to Idaho, just because it's so much easier to live here. You're not pushing your stroller down the subway stairs and things like that. So.
And so by that time, you had actually established a relationship with SI that allowed you to be mobile and not have to live in New York.
Yeah, exactly. That was the benefit really of spending the time there that I did. I mean, New York was fun. It was a total love-hate relationship. You know, some days I would wake up and think, this is so great. I can just walk down to the corner and pick up a newspaper and a bagel and a cup of coffee, and I don't have to, you know, get in the car and pollute the world and all that stuff. And then some days I'd be like, this is such a hassle living here. I've got no car. I've got no place to put the groceries. And so it was very much love-hate for sure for about the 5 years that we were there.
Well, what a blessing, man, that you get the best of both worlds now. Because you really do. You have the polar opposites that I love going to the big city and being a part of the energy until I'm ready to be out of the city, man. And I got to go. So you get to come back to Idaho and get that blessing. And I'd like to really learn more about, like, was it your intention? Were you a writer? Were you always a writer? Is that something that, like, the reason it's important for me is that what we coach is follow your bliss. You know, Joseph Campbell, follow your bliss. Your hero's journey is in that still small voice to do those things and bring that forth to the planet that is uniquely ours, that only we can bring out in that unique way. And if we miss it, there's regret. And so I'd love to know when you learned that you were a writer and how that process happened to where you ended up with SI. And then I want to get into how you became a Lucky Boy. It's cool.
Yeah, I mean, the writing, I just find the writing is very fun. And you talk about following your bliss and doing sort of what makes your heart sing. And I look at it like, what is the thing that you do that you're so wrapped up in it, and you're so in the moment, you're so present in the moment that you lose track of time. You could be sitting there literally for 3 hours and not realize that's what you've done. You know, you just totally lose track of time. You're just in it. You're just totally in process and engaged and firing. And I love that. I love that about writing. I just think it's fun. It's creative. I love to try and sort of turn some sort of a phrase that makes me smile. I love creating characters too. I love, whether it's writing for my day job, which is, you know, characters that exist, you know, covering those guys. Those are fun. whether it's a quirky billionaire, not Donald Trump, but I recently wrote about a quirky billionaire in Scottsdale, Arizona, and he was a lot of fun to write about, or just inventing characters as you do when you're writing a novel like Lucky Boy. I just think the characters are fun, the writing is fun, turning a phrase is fun, and it's creative. Like it's so like. I always ask myself, like, could a dog do this? And you know, so I think when I see somebody playing like a really beautiful piece of music, I think, geez, a dog couldn't do that, or you know, a dog couldn't create a painting, or a dog couldn't create a beautiful piece of writing. So I think that's what we're put here on this earth to do. I think that's why we're given these capabilities is to create and to do it. And that's our legacy, or part of our legacy anyway.
Yeah, brother, well said. That's well, let me put my headphones in. I got a little bit of feedback here. I really want to stay on that one because it's I really relate to that. Okay, is that pretty good sound, Cameron? Does that sound all right?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank God we have an editor, but all you live people can see what goes on. So they that space, when I didn't realize how magical writing was, or art or drawing was, until I was in junior high and we lived out by the lake in Nampa. And it was, I wasn't a happy kid at home, we'll put it that way, and we'll leave it there. And so I would go into my room and I would listen to music, and I like the early versions of headphones, and draw and write. And like you said, man, it was that flow state. And I want to grab a book by Steve Hopper, I believe it's called Rise of Superman, that talks about how we can get into flow, and that the magical place and what it really means. And I remember that. I mean, just hours would go by, and it was just that place that felt soft and warm and creative. And you know, some would say it like where the muse is. You know, these stories and ideas that didn't exist, I didn't think up, they just showed up, would show up. And it was for kind of an introverted guy by design, which people find is not, you know, they find that hard to believe with me, but that genuinely is. I've got a fine mix, and I like being alone because that space is so easy, versus then taking that out into the world and testing that. And so sounds like that's what you're talking about, man, right? Is that place?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's especially when you create these characters in these books and works of fiction, short stories, creative writing, they kind of keep you company, these characters. You kind of get to go into this place and hang out with them, and you're alone, you know, physically, but you're kind of not alone. So you kind of have the best of both worlds, and you get to play around. It's like playing with dolls or playing with action figures.
Right.
It's sort of the same thing. You're doing imaginative play, as they say, which is what little kids do. You've all heard your kids do it. You know, narrating the sequence of events, what's happening in their minds, as they sort of tell the story to themselves. So yeah, it's a blast. I think it's really fun, and you know, I guess I've proven really that writing is the thing that I would do even if I wasn't getting paid for it, because the creative writing is for the most part, it's not really a paying gig. It's just a sort of a fun sidelight type of thing. I mean, I'm not cranking these things out. I'm not a business at this point, as somebody like James Patterson or locally here Tony Doerr, who's, you know, just won the Pulitzer Prize last year. You know, I just do it because I like it. So.
Well, that's in your future, brother. So I'm confident of that. You're going to get that Pulitzer Prize, and that's.
Yeah.
And I know we have this show is like about business and no bullshits of things, but it's really wonderful because what we're talking about in business, if a person's going to be in business, and I've done all the things for money because I bought in really deeply, and I had children, and I had a wife, and I was an artist, man, and I didn't have a clue about how to make money. I just knew when I was in that space, all I could think about was being in that creative space. And so the unintended magical consequences is because I gravitated toward the internet, and I love to write like you're talking about. I love the art of communication, stories well said, And I love the place that life can be very challenging. Life is very hard, and it's also really wonderful. And to be in a place like as a young person where, it was only when I went to school that I realized that I was wearing the wrong color pants, or that my red hair, my freckles, because I was that kid, and I always felt awkward, and I was little, I was small, and so that was an uncomfortable experience that we all go through to some degree. And that respite place of my writing and coloring, was the magical place. So with business, what I found is, instead of fighting it, which I did for long, I started looking toward the internet, and I saw YouTube, and I saw young people creating films in their backyard that were pretty freaking cool. And and then, since I didn't have the opportunity to earn a living as a blogger with a mortgage and kids, I started, when Facebook showed up. That's where our friend James Chapman, he's like, dude, write, let's poor man's blog, right on Facebook. And I know a lot of people don't appreciate that. It's like, you're pouring your heart out. It's none of my business what you think of what I'm doing. That's for you. What I'm doing is I'm putting things on here that I can go back to later. And I tell you, I've got a pretty damn good short book right now, of stuff, and it's real life stuff, which is cool.
Well, Facebook is such an interesting thing, because what it is, we're still coming to terms with that as a society. We're still trying to figure out what it is and what it's for. One of the things that obviously it's been used for extensively is the stealth brag, the out and out brag. Like, look how great my life is. Look where I went. Look at this beauty shot of me in Paris or me in Italy, and that seems to be, I don't know what the percentages are, but that does seem to be the bulk of it. Maybe 80%, maybe 10% of it is birthdays.
Right.
Wish so and so a happy birthday. So what you're doing is sort of it's like in its own way, it's radical. It's going against the grain. It's inventing a new category, really, that I think it's just as valid as the brag, or look how great my life is. It's just that people are just a little slower to wake up to that, I think, and that application of Facebook.
Yeah, what you said, and I think I got this right, you guys. I apologize. I've got our technician James Chapman is like, click on this. I don't know whose face is being seen, so hopefully it's been yours the whole time, man, because I've been fidgety. But that, and that's part of what you're talking about with this new media. That I see that. I see the optimism. The optimism means in the pose of, if you're not getting up every day and crushing it, then you're it's as if we're bad, and it's so not the case. And I learned a long time ago that, just we know too much. I know the guy in front of the room with the suit and the tie looking really good because of my personal experience of, they say in landmark education that Werner Erhard started way back as S, that, through breakdowns that we break through. And one of the greatest blessings is I had a breakdown in my life, just things didn't work anymore, and I needed some help and support. I'm really open about that for a reason, because too many men and women like us are living a situation, a life and we were told boys don't cry, it's easy, buck up, Nancy, and that's just so sad. And I had that experience to where I realized, oh my God, this is not what I was told, and there's a way to live life. And so I like to be that open book for people. And and Facebook is really almost become like it has possibilities of changing the way media is distributed. Unfortunately, we all like to look good, and that's just the way it is. We want to look good. We don't want to look stupid. So therefore, I'm going to show you my best. And what we're not seeing is those folks, myself included, because there's certain things we don't want to share. What's life? There's some radical arguments that happen at our house because I've got a fiery girl, and it's life, and we have these wonderful moments. And so I like to put a fine blend of what's happening, but not stay stuck in stories. So what do you see?
I think that one of the things that that proves that there's a market for people getting real, and that proves that there's an audience for people getting very real, is the success of memoirs, and in particular memoirs that have been a big commercial runaway hit, such as Eat, Pray, Love, or just recently Wild got turned into a movie. The Cheryl Strayed book, it was a movie with Reese Witherspoon. But you've also had memoirs that have been very successful, that have been written by men and that have been about their lives being torn apart and blown to bits, basically. Dave Eggers, his first book, A Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius, was all about his parents both dying of cancer and what that did to him, what that did to his brother. Angela's Ashes by Frank McCourt, another great memoir, and also by a man, about his life basically being incredibly painful and sort of coming to America and having to kind of put himself back together, and having his family having to put itself back together. So I think there's a market for women and men getting very real and getting being very vulnerable with their story. It's maybe a little bit untapped, or relatively untapped, I would say, when you compare it to sort of the market for, hey, look at me, look how awesome I'm doing. Check out my sports car, check out my house, look at the trip that I went on. That market is definitely humming right along. But the market for sort of getting real and really opening up is still, I would say, a little bit in its infancy here.
Yeah, I would agree with you completely. I really do. I think, and the unfortunate thing is, well, it's not unfortunate. It's just a reality. Whatever becomes trendy becomes marketable, or becomes, if it's repeated enough, and that's really what's happened. Hey, Cameron, I'm going to put you on hold just for one moment, okay? I gotta, let's see. Oh, yes, if it's important enough, I'll need to know. Oh no. Actually, I'm going to hold 1 second. What's going on? Oh. So let's do this. All right. So there's certain things that you've got to do, Cameron. And so when your dad calls and you let it go to voicemail, and literally right after your mom calls and they're not married anymore, you got to pick up the phone. So Mom, you can say hi to Cameron. This is Cameron Morfit. He's the golf writer for Sports Illustrated.
Hi, Mom. How's it going?
Nice to meet you. I was watching you until I had to go pay bills.
It's a live show, Mom.
Well, thanks for watching.
Oh, I was watching you on
okay. I love you. Oh, it's good.
I love you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, bye. There it is. I think we're just going to leave that in so people know. My mom does not think I work. It's like I work from home. It's like she thinks I retired early. It's like, Mom. So thanks for that. Yeah, the vulnerability thing is it can be taken and run with to earn money. But I think because now I'm on the other side of it, and it's interesting. I can look back when that shifted. That we're really in a world that is got motivation. Everybody needs to learn how to say, how do you know that? Because people tend to parrot stuff that our parents said, and they haven't thought it through at all. Get the book, The Four Agreements, and really learn to question everything. And when I came to a place where, because it never felt good to try to have to fit in, we just fit in, and it's only marketing that tells us that we don't fit in. And that's the only way most people can sell us stuff, is by making us feel lack. And so you're closed, but if you drink this, then you'd be there. Drink this, right? Yeah. And so I bought into that to a degree, because I just didn't know how to be an artist and earn money, and it about killed me. It really about killed me. And so when you go to the other side and you see things differently after that experience, I'm not against it. I'm for reminding people of the reality of what we are and the place in which we live in, and that's it. And so, yeah, I think it's important that people understand that.
It's easy to lose sight. It's easy to lose balance. It's easy to get caught up in the rat race for sure. And I do it. You know, whenever I feel out of whack or unhappy, that's kind of what's happening. I'm basically I'm running around. I'm trying to please other people. I'm trying to put out fires. I'm trying to spin plates, whatever you want to call it. And I'm not giving myself any time. I'm not giving myself any grace, and not getting out, moving my body. I'm not reading the book I want to read or doing the writing that I really want to do. You know, it's all about balance, and it's you know, it's tough to remember that, because I think there is that finish line mentality, like, oh, if I just sprint to the finish here, then everything's going to be good. I'll be good. Everything's going to be happily ever after. You know, I'm going to break the tape. The audience is going to cheer. You know, the music's going to come up, you know, and it's all going to be just a wonderful, great shining moment. But that just doesn't happen. It's a, you know, life is such a process thing. And, you know, you have to just kind of be in that moment. And, that's tricky sometimes.
Brother, it's tricky, and it's part of it, you know. And I was raised a fundamentalist Christian kid, and I like the stories, you know. And you know, I've got a very broad view of the world now, and a more open and accepting view than we had. I was taught, and the story of the prodigal son means a lot more to me today than because I get it. We all are that person, you know. And Joseph Campbell, the hero with 1,000 faces, he talks about it, and he talks about how we've lost the myth, you know, mythology, and because that's what the soul goes through, you know. And as a storyteller, a lot of people may or may not realize that, like Star Wars and Rocky followed the hero's journey, and that whole process, which is in us, in our DNA. And a lot of people don't follow that hero's journey, and so when they see it, it strikes a nerve so deeply within their soul that they go, "Oh my God, it's amazing!" And it wasn't that Rocky beat Apollo Creed; it was when Rocky was before the fight. You know, he says, "You know, Adrian, just hold up. Here's Rocky, for God's sake, Adrian, just hold me. I'm scared." You know, oh my God, everybody loves him. You know, and he gave them permission, and he gave women that, "Oh, it's Rocky." Right, and look what kind of a brand was created out of that.
Yeah. No, it's fun to look at that stuff. I love looking at story structure and really breaking apart popular movies or popular books and saying, okay, well, why did this work? And you know, there's all these theories out there that there's really only one story, or there's really only like 2 or 3 stories. You know, the stranger in a strange land kind of thing, or you know, the call to action, refusal of the call to action, you know, all that stuff. And it all like there's so many people that point out, like, oh, this is all distilled into basically one story, and you can find commonalities in Star Wars and Ghostbusters and you know, to even movies that don't have supernatural elements in them. So yeah, I love breaking that stuff apart. I think it's super fun, and you know, it's just, I think a lot of it is paying attention to what's on the inside, and what your heart is telling you, and what your body is telling you, and not so much being stuck in your head. And you know, I think this is a very intellectual, sort of driven society that we live in. We're always trying to process information. We're getting stuff thrown at us left and right. There's visual stimuli, there's auditory stimuli, there's just, it's everywhere, and you're always trying to process it. So that plays to your intellect. It sort of gets you into your head. Whereas I really think that a lot of times we'd be better off getting out of there and just sort of living by our sort of inner compass and letting the heart lead. And that's really hard to do. Also, that's incredibly hard to do, especially for me. I get stuck in my head all the time.
That's it's like an imperfect, perfect path to that enlightenment. And I love what you just shared that, to kind of close the loop on what you shared, I was thinking it's like, that's not possible. No, there is no, if I get that, when I get there, then I will be, which we are told it's like over there. And it's even like, go to school, get good grades, get a good job, work 40 years, and then you're going to be able to live this magical life, right, which isn't true. Right. Life is a freaking deal, man, with the juice and the, you got to squeeze to get it, and it's the sweet and the sour. And we have a culture that's created like it's supposed to feel good and be fun. Well, go back 200 years and ask, our great grandparents. It was easy and fun all the time. Who lived through the Great Depression? We anesthetized ourselves through like entertainment. The one thing that I thought when you said that was, the one place where you can do that right now is in our minds, and there's a big thing happening with lucid dreaming, which is our ability to actually know we're asleep and dreaming and control that. And it's we're not just dead for a third of our life when we're asleep. There's a lot going on there, and I think that's another fun story. When we really realized that everything was an idea, and it ends up as a cup. It doesn't just like boof a cup when I think it, but it started as that. And so there's so much creativity that, like you shared, to just close our eyes and learn to, because I talk a lot, and just breathe and feel that stress go away. And thank God I've got kids who take me, let's just go to the river. And a couple nights ago, we went out just south of Kuna to Initial Point. I don't know if you're familiar with Initial Point, where they mapped out all of Idaho. It's down by the Snake River, and it sits up high. You can see every direction, and the sun was setting. And so the Oahe Mountains were purple. The Boise's were red, and the sunset was just magical. And literally just like sat down on a rock and watched it. And I thought, my God, right? Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Yeah, that's where you want to be. I mean, that's the sweet spot. I remember somebody telling me one time, what if everything has already worked out and you just don't know it yet? Because we have this tendency to let the monkey mind run unchecked and try and think of all these eventualities, all these possible roadblocks, how to fix things, how we need to know. And I think there's so much stuff that we do to try to disable that. And getting out in nature is certainly one of the things to do, and exercise certainly one of the things to do. Then you have sort of the other side of the coin, which is you get into having a glass of wine, or 2 glasses of wine, or 3 glasses of wine, and that's all. It's all sort of toward the same purpose. It's all people who are feeling stuck and feeling trapped in that need to know, and that worry and that anxiety, and feeling stuck in their head and trying to get out, like screaming, like, get me out of here. And it's if you can find those real simple things, going out to the banks of a river with your kids, looking at the sunset, or skiing or running or whatever, that's the sweet spot. And like we said before, sitting down to create a piece of art, or a piece of writing, or a piece of music, same thing. That's, you're out of your head. You're kind of, you're not locked into that craziness, that crazy loop of what am I going to do? How am I going to fix it? How come I don't know yet? I need to know. And you just kind of, you're blessedly free of that for a moment, and that's where the flow is, I guess, and that's the sweet spot.
Yeah, brother, well said, Cameron. And yeah, this is a really huge. This is really what I do. People ask me, like, what do you do? What are you doing now? That's a big one. What are you doing now? Because I've always been that guy trying to get out of a specific system and do what I love. And I do a lot of things. It's like on Facebook, people say, I've got marketing people who I deeply respect. They say, dude, your brand, you're like, you've gone out of prolific to crazy. And it's like, you need to stick and build your brand. I said, but yeah, but some days I feel like a cowboy, sometimes I feel like a pirate, sometimes I feel like a biker, and sometimes I feel like, you know what I mean? It's like, so it's all of it. So I'm not about, and what I'm clear about now is sometimes our call isn't, it has nothing to do with money. I'm going to keep the bills paid, but I choose to be more and more congruent and like shed the inventions I made of myself and let other people deal with whatever the hell they think who I am. It's none of my business. And that's the beautiful thing that I heard you say is there's no right or wrong way. There's only going off the call or into the call, and it's all unique. And so it's really cool to see people who have the ability like you, who you're able to go into the created, a manufactured reality, like most everybody. And I do it too. God, I live in a house and I have a car and I do certain things in the created reality. But the reality is what I've heard you describe is, and you do very well. I mean, I know you do very well. And it's fulfilling a lot and supporting your family. And you've got this nice blend where you can go back into the refueling of yourself. You're in it, but you're not of it. It's like a fine disconnect, which is an art, Cameron. And I just admire the heck out of you for the way you're able to do that and just live uniquely you, because that's perfect. It's uniquely you, and only you know, right? And but everybody wants to judge and say they know what the hell's going on with Cameron. They don't have a clue. I don't have a clue. Only you do.
It helps to be intentional about it for sure. I mean, I think at the end of every year, I was telling you this a little bit off camera that at the end of every golf season, I feel so destroyed that I have to go off by myself for a week or so, or go off to a retreat, a spiritual retreat, or what have you, and just kind of get all the sort of mental I don't know, all the frazzled feelings and the mental sort of cobwebs out that have been created through the course of a year of trying to hit deadlines and make ends meet and meet expectations. And it's very easy to get off, and I am off a lot of the time. And it's only when I'm intentional about getting back on that I'm able to do it for sure. And it's I'm really grateful. I've been very, very lucky that I've had the opportunity to go and do some of these things, some of these workshops and retreats and what have you. I see a therapist in Boise. I'm lucky to have resources like that, resources like friends to talk to, and the fact that as you say, we are in Idaho and we can go outside and we can go out and watch the sunset or go skiing or go whitewater rafting or whatever I want to do. So I'm very, very lucky in that way.
Cameron, what you just shared, I'm just sharing that the opportunity you have, the opportunity I have had by choice now, but not by choice later. It was either go to therapy or stuff's not going to be the same. Is a real courageous move. You said something that I'm a stand for, which is men. And I'm a guy, so I speak for us, knowing that women really should be running the place. I know this. When you say, "Hey, I go to therapy," there's people going, "What? That was therapy? You'll buck up, Nancy." That's the gift. Is that high level writer for one of the biggest magazines? Interviewing the rock stars in golf and outside of golf, and you say, "Yeah, I go do this." Why? Because you learned to write somewhere. You had an English teacher, right? You learned to drive, and why not learn how we work and how to defrag that stuff? And I just think it's awesome that you share that, because people think that what they're seeing on out there is helpful. It's really not. It's motivated, and you also said something that there's something inside us we've always known. None of this stuff existed even 200 years ago. This industrial revolution changed a lot of the way, and is borrowed from, taken, and then brainwashed away where they got the technology to do like this hangout right now. like, we have the natural equipment. It's the way it is. And there are still people in different places on the planet who still very deeply rely on that and very rarely ever are exposed to technology like this. And so that's why I recommend people read the book Mutant Message Down Under. They really study, Nikola Tesla and why the hell is this guy who, everything that, turbines generation, free energy, the radio, why was he so smeared and forgotten? And oh, and by the way, he used to have these visions. This is a guy who is like the most brilliant guy on the planet, and nobody knows about him. And it's fascinating because I like to study. I'm sure, like you do, like different books and put it together. It's like, when we become so powerful, when we know how powerful we are, then we're dangerous. So that's why burn witches at the cross, or on the stakes. Like, we're just doing what we came in here with, And so now we've got that very same technology, that Tesla technology, that is. I don't want to like lose viewers here. You just don't take my word for anything I say here. Go do the research and come up with your own opinion. And that's the best thing, is do your own research. But understanding that, that technology is being used. Like, look outside up in the sky, it's being used, So that's the cool stuff that, anyway, I don't want to get too far off track, but that's the stuff that fascinates me. Is I'm not against it. I'm not scared of anything that's going on. I'm just, because now it's not about anything that I thought it was. Now I'm on what I was here to do, which is ultimately go out and go through the experiences that I'm supposed to go through so that I may return, shed of the inventions that get created on the way out, and on the way back, see home for the first time. I read that somewhere. I thought it was cool, but it makes total sense, right?
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, when you discover your true power, that's when you become sort of dangerous. You become a threat. And it's true. It's so true, because you become a threat and you become dangerous to the status quo. You're dangerous to the way things have been for years and years and years. And people, I think, have the tendency to try to marginalize you and try to basically kind of paint you into some sort of a crazy corner. Like, oh, look how crazy this person is. I was just reading about a guy, a big long article in the New Yorker about a guy who basically has decided he's going to live on around 20,000 a year, and in order to try and lead by example and get the people to stop basically wasting the world's resources, the Earth's resources, and he calls himself Mr. Money Mustache, and so I read the whole article, and it was a pretty interesting article, and I would encourage people to check it out. And there's something super liberating in the whole concept, like the fact that you don't have to go out and chase the mighty dollar to meet your gigantic mortgage or to pay your car payment or whatever, that you can actually stay home and you can live like a human being and actually be with your family. But the headline on the article sort of marginalized the guy, and the headline was the scold, the SCOLD, the scold. So they sort of pinpointed, it sort of painted him as like somebody who was pointing his finger at other people and looking down at them for not living like he's living. So it was kind of interesting because that guy's a threat. He's a threat to sort of the status quo. He's a threat to the idea that you don't have enough and you have to go out there and make big money, get a promotion, get the big job, get the fancy car. He's a threat to that whole paradigm, which everybody's bought into. And even as the New Yorker ran this whole big article on him, they couldn't resist slapping the headline on there that kind of marginalized that guy. And I think I read something on Twitter. It was either on Twitter or Facebook from Mrs. Money Mustache that she was kind of disillusioned with the whole thing, and that the article had rubbed her the wrong way. And I would guess, I haven't talked to her, but I would guess that part of that was the headline.
Yeah, I bet it would be that way. I'm getting a little feedback there, but yeah, Cameron, I think that that's the thing that like Bill Hicks, and again, this is what I learned is there's a changing the world. It's like I want to save the world, and my own personal belief is as soon as you change your own world, by really diving in and identifying, know thyself, that you change the world instantly. And now it's not on my shoulders. What a narcissist to think
Everything
that.
changes when we do. Everything changes. Everything changes when we do. That's a good slogan. I like that one. That's one of the spiritual retreats I went to has that slogan on a fountain. Everything changes when we do. So
yeah, and I want to get to Lucky Boy, bro, because we got to do this again. So long as we don't freak too many people out with this stuff. This is the conversation that I think truly matter. Like, because it is. We've had those arguments with somebody where we were right. Oh my God, we're right. You're wrong, and we just know it burns hot. I'm right. You're stupid. And then you go, oh my God, I just changed my mind. You might not admit it, but and all of a sudden you see it exactly from that other perspective, and that's part of the major issue, I believe. And so there, it's not about it's our own individual journey, and we're trying to put into something that's very uniform, and we're not. We're just not. And so with that, we're gonna put some stuff in the show notes, man, because there's some cool stuff like what you shared about that guy. I think it's that it's really hard to find just the truth about things anymore. There's information, there's this that's wrong, there's information that's true, and then there's a fine mix of it. And disinformation is it's a high-paying job today, man. Is to make sure everybody's just a little bit off. They're right, a little bit off, and you can always throw a label on it. And all a person's got to do when you look at that stuff about, all I had to do, and it gave me a perspective, put it that way, is I started looking at why certain things happen on the planet where you've got a guy who says, hey, I just want this oil in this country to go to my people. And overwhelmingly, one overwhelming majority. And they send a guy in who says, listen, we can make you wealthy if you go this way. But if you don't go this way, you're out. And sure enough, it wasn't like he was very smeared to the point of he had to go into hiding. So somebody was very good, sharing something that he knew was a gift, but it wasn't in line with the big majority. And the guy's gone, man. And that happens over and over. And I love what Bill Hicks says. Bill Hicks isn't with us, one of the greatest, I think, the greatest comedians ever. He says about fear or love, and that's truly it. He says, why is it that, we get on the ride of life and it's fun and it's exciting for a while. And then some people show up and they say, hey, don't worry about it. It's just a ride. They remember what it's all about. And he says, why is it that we kill those people? And he goes on. So I'll leave it at this to you to go to YouTube and research Fear or Love by Bill Hicks. And I found that it's much like that for me. So that's just my perspective, though. So how did this happen? Oh, because you, brother, last time I spoke with you at the sidelines of a soccer game, we're like, I'm gonna scrap that for your project. Because I was like, writing a novel. I was intrigued. Yeah. And you were gonna scrap it. And then we hadn't spoken for about a year. And all of a sudden, you cranked this bad boy out in 3 freaking weeks, man. How'd that happen?
Well, the writing of it was the easy part for sure. I as a journalist, or as somebody who's writing all the time like you are, you get in a habit of just cranking out words. And once I knew where the story was going, it became fairly easy. And it was just a joy to write. It probably was more like a 6-week process to write the first draft, and then get an editor and then have them make notes and then go back to it and sort of address those notes and either make changes or not. And but the actual writing process, it was about a 6-week deal, and it's a fun book. It's a middle grade book. It's a very likable little character. The character actually, it was a boy that I noticed on the soccer field actually when I was walking to one of my daughter's games. A boy was wearing these big, thick, goofy goggles with the strap that goes around the back of the head. And,
I like him already.
he kind of had sort of pudgy cheeks and stubbly hair, and I just kind of thought, that's my guy. That's going to be my sort of protagonist here. So it's interesting that that's how it came to me. That's how I figured out what this kid was supposed to look like, and I just kind of went from there. It's a zero to hero story, as a lot of young adult books are. At the beginning of the school year, he's kind of got a body like a bag of marshmallows, and he kind of doesn't feel like he fits in. His older sister is popular and pretty, and his younger brother hasn't talked for like 4 years or something, so that parents are focused on him, and he's just kind of the forgotten about middle kid. And then they have a relative who shows up on their doorstep toward the beginning of the school year, and basically he's the catalyst. He changes everything, and by the end of it, he's totally transformed. So it was a fun book.
So you basically saw me on the side of the field and wrote my story. Right? Hey, Cameron.
Did you say as a kid?
Okay? Can you hold? I just need to do one edit here real quick.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So Cameron, you know what an edit is on a live show?
Yeah, what is that?
Yeah, it's a lot of coffee and not close enough to the bathroom. So that's an edit.
Yeah.
So I apologize, man. I was like, I want to know what the heck's going on. How did this happen? So
Yeah.
pick that back up, will you? Like,
yeah. So the book, what I realized was that in writing my first novel, which never quite worked out, was that it was the first novel was a little too arch, a little too clever by half, and wasn't really connected. It didn't have heart, didn't really make me feel when I wrote it, and it didn't have much of a prayer of making any readers feel much when they read it. And a book like that, if it's going to be clever and if it's going to be humor, it better be really funny. And I would say that's the hardest type of writing to do, is humor writing. And after 3 years, I basically just I chalked it up as my Masters of Fine Arts that I never had, as just 3 years worth of hard lessons, fun lessons, excruciating lessons, and scrapped it pretty much and started a new book, and that's what became Lucky Boy. Has nothing to do with the first novel that I wrote, and as I said before, it came pretty quickly. It was a fun book to write, and I just sat down and made myself crank out the words, and lo and behold, 6 weeks later, I had a pretty compelling little story, and it's gotten some really good reviews, and friends are saying some nice things, but also some impartial reviewers are saying some nice things about it. So I would encourage people to check it out.
Yeah, and I've got to be clear. I got this book right when it came out, the day it came out, and I got this stack, and this is the book that my kids and I this weekend are going to cruise through, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to give you my no BS. But here's what I know about this book, knowing you, is with that transition that it feels like you got real, just very real. You used to like the human element, because what I've seen and what I've read, the cover and the back, and I really, I'm excited to get into it, is this is the human element, the stuff that we all feel. This is like this why Steven Spielberg's films are all so great, is because we've all been that kid, man, right?
Yeah.
And so as you described this guy, I wasn't a marshmallow kid, but 4-year-old sister who was 4 years older, who was pretty and a great athlete and could kick my ass until I was probably a junior in high school. It's like, oh my God. Uh, I resonate, man. So now I'm super excited about it. And where are
Yeah, I think
people?
everybody will recognize some things for sure. I think people will recognize themselves in some of these characters for sure. I think there's also enough variety in the characters, so they're kind of guaranteed to. There's Max, who's sort of the central character. He's the middle kid, who's sort of the whole thing revolves around. But then there's his older sister plays a part in this as well. So you know, girl readers are going to identify with some of the stuff that she deals with in this book, and she's almost more than her brother. She's almost the hero of this story. And then there's an adult character as well, who's this guy named Dewey, and he's the distant relative who kind of shows up on their doorstep, and he's been a little kicked around by life, and he kind of shows up hoping to kind of change his karma, change his energy a little bit. And with this family, he does that, and everybody changes. They're not the same at all by the end of the book. So it's really a fun book. There's a big arc of a big transformation that all the characters go on, and by the end, it's really kind of moving.
Well, let me ask you this: is there any part of this that's actually a personal aspect that you witnessed, or aspects of your own life, or things that you've seen?
Yeah, you know, there's a little bit of golf in this thing. So he's the main character. His name is Max, and he's actually the manager of his school's golf team. And I played golf when I was that age. I played for the golf team, and so I've seen that dynamic play out. And Max, unfortunately, is not talented enough or coordinated enough to actually be one of the players. So he's the manager of the team. He washes the van. He keeps the clubs clean. He supplies the golf balls and things like that. So, but I've seen all that. I've seen all that dynamic, the team dynamic of high school golf and everything. And so that's personal. And then some of the stuff with Max, just sort of feeling like he's not fitting in, he's too short, or he's just not cool enough. You know, I think that is kind of the universal sort of kid experience, whether they're in middle school or high school. That's sort of like the universal adolescent type of feeling. Like, I think everybody feels like that. Even kids who other kids would look at and say, what's that kid got to complain about? I mean, she's gorgeous, or he's perfect, or whatever. You know, even those kids, I think, have that feeling at some point. They just, you know, I think it's universal, and I think there's really a lot that people will identify with in Lucky Boy.
Yeah. Brother, I do too, and I appreciate you writing that. I appreciate having conversations like this. Like, literally, man, I can just keep chatting all day. I mean, I want to take my laptop, show you my book, show you around, and because that's the stuff that we judge our insides by other people's outsides, and the reality is we've been around enough now, and I understand that, you know, different people have different experiences based on their archetype, which, like, Googling that, it's really helpful to know that. And then personality types, you know, that's great to know, just so we know how to communicate and honor our relationships, our children. But that's the reality, man. Most people are going around thinking everybody else has it figured out, and we don't. And it's about getting real, right? And so I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
And
thanks
Cameron,
a lot.
yeah, thanks for taking the time out. I know you're a super busy guy, and I pulled you into a long conversation. 'Cause again, I just find you fascinating. I love it when I get to. I'm looking at my bookshelf over here. It's like, oh, which book would Cameron like? It's to be able to
you
have
should. I want you to Facebook Messenger me some book titles. I want to definitely get some Troy Old's recommendations for my nightstand, and get going on some of those, because I think we've read some of the same books with, like, the Joseph Campbell stuff and the hero's journey and all that, but a lot of the stuff I think is different. So I'd love to catch up on.
I would love to do that. Have you got 3 more minutes? I'm kind of like showing off here, and I'm really proud of this. As soon as I can see if let's see if we're on wireless, I'll show you my bookshelf. And this is something I did yesterday that, and I'll be sure that we can sign off just in case I didn't do this correctly, and we'll go to wireless. But this is what I do this for. Like, this conversation that we're having, And like you said, writing books, a lot of people have this perception, you must be getting rich. No, man, I'm doing exactly what I want to do, which I stated after going through what I thought it was that I was supposed to do. What I want to meet the most talented, passionate, amazing people on the planet while I'm here. If Tesla was still around now, I would know him. But I know that I'm going to know Elon Musk. I know that, and you know, it's just 6 degrees of separation. My friend Steve Pizarro, who's going to be on the show, is he's the only recipient of the Edison Award in Idaho. That award was handed to him by Elon Musk. He's got a water machine that's going to revolutionize the water industry. Well, I need to keep it down here, but he's just like you. We just connected because we're of that mind of there's more. So let's see if this happens. I'm going to unplug and see if we can go. You still see me?
No.
I'm gonna have to do some serious edits on this thing, man. But
I think when you unplugged, it kind of stopped. The video stopped.
Okay, I'm gonna try it anyway. Here we go. So it's gonna stop, and then we're gonna go back. Can you still see me?
Yeah, I see.
All right. Now we're gonna cruise. So now you're gonna realize that I'm actually in my home office. Okay. So here we're gonna go to my mug. Boom. All right. So this is my office. We got Maxfield Parrish. We got one of my favorite piece of art ever. We've got Tecumseh. So live your life that fear of death can never enter your heart, right? You see that? And then we've got Our Deepest Fear by Marianne Williamson. And then we cruise this way, not looking at the floor. We've got this, and the reason we have this is because I'd be at my son's baseball game when I made it, because I'm doing what they say, got to earn a living. And he'd be looking over his shoulder at me. I'd be on my phone trying to earn $1. And I miss too much. So he wants to hike and climb. This is me. And I have no problem showing that stuff, man. These are my books. Yeah. This is the one, Steve Kotler, who it talks about getting into flow. This book is Kevin Costner's co-written book. And I was listening to a Tim Ferriss podcast, and he shared something that was so vulnerable that I totally related to. I never played board games since the 3rd grade. And it was only when I went to Landmark Education that I realized that the reason why was because when I was in the 3rd grade, my sister, who I always thought was cool, but she thought I was a dork, and my coolest cousin ever were playing Monopoly. And I sold them a home. They gave me some money. They said, "Is it all there?" And I'm in the 3rd grade. I said, "Yep, all there." And they leaned in and said, "You're so stupid." And I was mortified. And at that moment, I said, "I'll never play games, and I'll never feel like that again. And I suck at math." And the next person after a Landmark Education course who said that was Kevin Costner in Tim Ferriss's interview with them. He said that he will put money on a counter at a gas station, like knowing it's more, and leave. Because if they ask him for different change, it just, he locks up. And it happens because he was humiliated at the chalkboard when he was in the 4th grade by a teacher. And it stuck with him, right? So here's my bookshelf. I make it very clear for all of us, like our shrine, that this is why we do this stuff. Yeah. They're my kids. There's family. And then I put this down here. I think it's important that I share this, is that there's Green and Green, master craftsmen. They built beautiful homes in Pasadena that were works of art. You've got Joseph Campbell back there, Thug Kitchen, eat like you give it an F. And so I want to represent this for my kids now because I did it so poorly in the past. And then under here, we've got books on family. John Bradshaw, Road Less Traveled, Marianne Williamson, Raising Children, 4 Agreements. And we've got little books like we're going to have yours, to where we can just kick back and then we can read to each other. And so I'm really proud of that, Look at that. Isn't that cool? Yeah. I got the tour. Whole tour. Oh, you didn't get the whole tour, brother. You have to come out. I can't show you everything, man. So Cameron, thanks a lot, man, for taking the time out. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it was fun.
We'll do it again sometime.
We're gonna do lunch again soon, right?
All right, we'll do it. See you,
All right,
Troy.
brother. Give us one of these. Big wave. All right, brother.
I'll say
Appreciate you.
bye-bye. See you guys.
Thanks, Cameron.
Bye-bye.